Now we're going to talk about a few VPC to VPC connectivity options. And really there's a lot of overlap with what we just talked about on the on-premise to VPC connection, but there are two unique ones here. One's called VPC peering, the other is called AWS Private Link, and we're going to talk about those two specifically. Now VPC peering is just a way to link two VPCs together so that they can communicate with one another. And that's when you'd use it, when you have multiple VPCs and they need to communicate or share resources. Now this option uses the AWS backbone without touching the internet. And that's a good thing because you don't necessarily want to have to egress out to the internet just to get to another VPC in your account. Now an important thing here is transitive peering is not supported. So in other words, if VPC A is connected to VPC B and VPC B is connected to VPC C, then A cannot talk to C through B. This just means that you have to intentionally peer certain VPCs if you want them to communicate. How you do this is pretty simple. The originator has to make a VPC peering request, then the acceptor accepts it. Then after the acceptor accepts it, both sides have to set up an appropriate route to route traffic to their other respective VPC. And here's how this might look. It's just two VPCs able to communicate to one another through this peering connection feature. We also have Private Link, and it's a way that we can connect to services, either AWS services or maybe services created by third parties. And we can do that in a secure fashion right over the AWS provided network. Let's also say that maybe I'm a service provider and I have a set of APIs that I want to provide access to my subscribers. So I can create endpoints inside AWS. And then when another company signs up for access to that API, I can give them that endpoint. Then they can connect their VPC to it and make use of my API. So it's a bit different than VPC peering, where you're connecting two whole networks together. This is more granular. This is exposing services or connecting to services. And we call those services endpoints, VPC endpoints. And so the benefit is that it's redundant and it uses the AWS backbone. We don't have to go out to the internet only to loop back around to get access to the AWS service. And it's really easy to create a VPC endpoint or make use of a VPC endpoint. You can do that straight from the VPC console or the CLI. One thing to know about endpoints is that there are two types of endpoints. One is an interface endpoint and one is a gateway endpoint. And at least right now, there's only two services that use the gateway endpoint, and that's S3 and DynamoDB. Most all the other services that you can access via endpoints use interface endpoints. And the real difference here is on the interface endpoints, they're implemented as an elastic network interface inside your VPC or attached to your VPC. AWS attaches a private hosted zone from Route 53 to your VPC whenever you spin up one of these interface endpoints, and it uses kind of DNS redirection or DNS trickery to route any calls to those services to the private path. Now, in contrast, on the gateway side, the gateway uses prefix lists. That's just a predefined list of all the IP addresses that comprise that service. And it acts as kind of an intercept. You put it in your route table, or AWS automatically puts it in your route table. And it redirects traffic when you're trying to go to a certain IP address, like the S3 service, for example. It's going to intercept that and direct that through a private interface so that it doesn't go out to the public internet. Now, another main difference between the two different types of endpoints is how you can secure them. Interface endpoints use security groups, and security groups are just like the security groups that you use in normal VPCs or assigned to instances. Now, gateway endpoints use something called VPC endpoint policies, and they use the same syntax as an IAM policy, and you can define certain conditions in that policy. And where I would use VPC endpoint policies is if I wanted to control access to my S3 bucket or DynamoDB table and only allow it to be accessed when traffic comes through this VPC endpoint. And that's a good way to implement some least privilege principles on your S3 buckets in DynamoDB if you don't need to access them from outside of VPC. So we have our EC2 instances, and through an endpoint, we can directly connect to S3 without having to go all the way around out to the public internet, only to connect to the public side of S3. We can connect to the private side of S3.